In the gritty heart of Brookton, West Virginia, where coal dust clung to every surface and hope was as scarce as steady jobs, an 8-year-old boy named Kevin Taylor was about to turn a cruel prank into a life-changing triumph. What began as a teenager's attempt to humiliate the son of a struggling mechanic would unravel into a story of extraordinary talent, community strength, and unexpected redemption. Taylor Auto Repair, a weathered brick garage wedged between Henderson's Hardware and the ghost of Murphy's Five and Dime, was Kevin's second home. The air inside hummed with the clatter of wrenches, the wheeze of air compressors, and the faint strum of classic rock from a radio in the corner. The smell of motor oil and sweat permeated the space, a testament to years of hard work. Dave Taylor, Kevin's father, emerged from under the hood of a 1998 Ford pickup, grease streaking his forehead. At 35, worry aged him beyond his years, each repair job a thin thread holding his family above financial ruin. "Kevin, hand me the 3 4-inch socket," he called, eyes fixed on the engine. Kevin, small for his age with sharp eyes and perpetually messy hair, darted from behind a stack of tires, socket in hand. He moved with the ease of someone born among machines, his clothes clean but worn, patched with care by a family that couldn't afford waste. Raised in the garage since he could toddle, Kevin didn't just watch his father work, he absorbed it, understanding the logic of engines as naturally as others learned to read. "This one, Dad?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Dave nodded, pride flickering in his tired eyes. "You see how the alternator connects to the battery?" he said, pointing. "Everything works together. One part fails, it drags the whole system down." Kevin nodded, studying the engine with a focus that belied his age. The moment was shattered by the crunch of expensive tires on gravel. A gleaming black BMW SUV pulled up, alien in the gritty lot. Dave straightened, wiping his hands on his coveralls. In Brookton, cars like that belonged to the Andersons, the family that owned the town's largest factory. They didn't bring their business to local shops like Dave's, preferring corporate dealerships in Charleston. The driver's door opened, and Brett Anderson, 17, stepped out. Tall, athletic, and dressed in designer clothes, he carried the arrogance of someone who'd never doubted his place in the world. 2 friends, Jake Morrison and Brad Sterling, followed, their smirks betraying disdain for the garage's honest grit. "Mr. Taylor," Brett said, his polite tone laced with condescension. "Hope we're not interrupting anything important." Dave set down his wrench, wary. The Andersons lived in a different Brookton, one where money solved problems, not ingenuity. "What can I do for you, Brett?" he asked. Brett's gaze shifted to Kevin, his smile sharpening. "We were wondering if we could borrow your son, for a bit," he said. "There's a problem at the plant. Someone thought the mechanics kid might know a thing or two about fixing things." Jake and Brad snickered, their laughter a clear signal of a setup. Dave's jaw tightened. "Kevin's just 8, he said. "I'm not sure he'd be much help at the plant." "It's just a hydraulic press," Brett pressed, his tone mockingly light. "Nothing too complicated. Thought fresh eyes might spot something our engineers missed." The words dripped with false encouragement, and Dave saw the trap clearly, a prank meant to humiliate his son. "Absolutely not," he said firmly. "That's dangerous equipment." Brett's smile didn't waver. "Come on, Mr. Taylor. It's perfectly safe, just a quick look. Could even go viral. Local kid solves big factory problem." Brad waved his phone, the threat of a recorded humiliation clear. Dave stepped protectively in front of Kevin. "I said no." Brett's smile faltered, revealing a colder edge. "That's unfortunate," he said softly. "My mom was just saying how much she values local businesses that go the extra mile. You know how many jobs depend on our plant." The subtle threat hung heavy in the air. Brett's mother, Diane Anderson, held sway over Brookton's economy. Defying her family could cost Dave his livelihood. Kevin tugged at his father's arm. "It's okay, Dad," he said quietly. "I'd like to see the machine." Dave looked into his son's eyes, seeing curiosity, not fear. Kevin's confidence, honed by years in the garage, was unshaken. Against every instinct, Dave relented. "1 hour," he said, "and he stays away from moving parts." Brett nodded eagerly, and Kevin climbed into the BMW, leaving Dave with a sinking feeling as the car pulled away. The Anderson manufacturing plant sprawled across 15 acres, its red brick and smokestacks a symbol of Brookton's industrial heart. Kevin pressed his face to the BMW's window, taking in the organized chaos of shift change. "Impressive, isn't it?" Brett said, glancing at him in the rearview mirror. "My mom employs half this town." Kevin nodded politely, sensing the boast wasn't meant for conversation but to assert dominance. Inside, the plant was a mechanical wonderland. The hydraulic press loomed like a giant 20 feet tall, its cylinders thicker than Kevin's body, surrounded by flashing warning lights and safety barriers. "Been down for 3 days," Brett said theatrically. "Engineers are stumped. Pressure. Build's fine, but the press won't cycle." Kevin approached cautiously, hands behind his back as his father had taught him around dangerous equipment. "Has anyone checked the sequence timing?" he asked, his voice nearly lost in the factory's din. Frank Sullivan, the foreman, looked up, surprised by the boy's question. "Timing relays checked out," he said, joining them. Kevin nodded, scanning the machine. "What about the accumulator isolation valve? If it's partially closed, gauges might show normal pressure, but flow could be restricted." Frank's eyebrows rose. He moved to a control panel, checked readings, and frowned. "Valve's at 87% open, should be 100%. He cycled the valve manually, and the hydraulic flow deepened. Gauges climbed, and a test cycle roared to life, the press moving with precision. "Unbelievable," Frank muttered. 3 days of downtime and an 8-year-old fixes it in 5 minutes. Workers gathered, drawn by the press's revival and the sight of a child in their midst. "Who's the kid?" asked Jennifer Adams, the floor supervisor. "Dave Taylor's son," Frank replied. "Just diagnosed our problem." Brett's face darkened as his prank unraveled. His plan to mock Kevin had backfired spectacularly, exposing the boy's brilliance instead. "Lucky guess," he muttered, but Frank ignored him, turning to Kevin. "How'd you know to check the valve?" Kevin shrugged. "In hydraulic systems, pressure without flow usually means a valve issue. The accumulator's often overlooked." Diane Anderson arrived, her presence commanding silence. "I heard my son brought a guest to fix our press," she said, her tone sharp but curious. She shook Kevin's hand. "You must be Kevin Taylor. Frank says you solved our problem quickly." Kevin nodded. "It was just logic, ma'am." Diane studied him, then turned to Brett, whose discomfort was palpable. "Explain how this visit came about," she said. Brett stammered. "I thought it'd be interesting for him to see real equipment." Diane's expression suggested she saw through the lie. Kevin spoke up, unaware of the tension. "I think Brett hoped I'd fail, but I like learning how things work." The honest remark landed like a bombshell, exposing Brett's cruelty. Diane's face hardened, and she turned to Frank. "Add Kevin to our approved visitor list. His insight could benefit our training." The crowd murmured approval, leaving Brett isolated, his plan in tatters. Back at the garage, Kevin recounted the day to Dave, who listened with growing concern. His son's brilliance had upended the town's social order, drawing attention that could be both a blessing and a curse. The next day, word of Kevin's feat spread, amplified by a front-page article in the Brookton Herald. Reporters, professors, and TV crews descended, turning Kevin into a local legend. At school, classmates mobbed him, and his teacher, Rebecca Walsh, invited him to present on hydraulics, where he diagrammed systems with startling clarity. The attention wasn't all positive. Brett, humiliated, escalated his retaliation, pressuring local businesses with false safety violations. When he stormed into Kevin's school demanding the boy retract his claims of genius, he was met by Frank Sullivan and other workers who defended Kevin's competence. "It wasn't luck," Frank said firmly. "He understood the system better than our engineers." Diane, informed of her son's actions, called an emergency meeting, confronting Brett and his accomplice, Carlos Rivera, a young engineer. "You turned a child's success into a public relations disaster," she said, her anger barely contained. At a community gathering in the factory lot, Diane took the stage. 10 days ago, my son tried to humiliate Kevin Taylor," she admitted. Instead, Kevin solved a problem our engineers couldn't, and Brett retaliated with cruelty. That was wrong. She announced a partnership with West Virginia University to fund Kevin's education and a STEM scholarship for local students. Brett, visibly chastened, apologized publicly. "I wanted to embarrass Kevin because I felt threatened," he said. "He's smarter than me, and I was wrong to punish him for it." Kevin stepped forward, his voice steady. "I accept your apology, Brett. I fixed the machine because that's what you do when something's broken. I hope you'll help people instead of hurting them." The crowd erupted in applause, moved by the boy's grace. Brett, shaken, shook Kevin's hand, a gesture of reconciliation that marked a turning point. 3 months later, Brookton celebrated its new STEM program. Kevin showcased a transmission model he'd designed, impressing MIT's Dr. William Carter. Brett, now in factory training, worked alongside him, his arrogance replaced by genuine effort. The community had transformed, united by Kevin's talent and the collective choice to nurture it. As Dave watched his son, he reflected on the crisis that had reshaped their lives. "Things worked out because good people made good choices," he told Kevin. The boy nodded, his focus already back on the next problem to solve, a reminder that true genius lies not just in skill, but in the desire to make things work better for everyone.